So I haven't finished a book in about a month and a half, and I am in one of the worst reading slumps ever. And I'm definitely starting to feel my soul wither from the lack of words and beautiful prose in my life. So today I thought I'd motivate myself about reading and all of the things that I want to read by telling you about a bunch of new releases and upcoming books that I am so hyped for that you need to be picking up and that are quite literally the only things getting me through the week. But first, your girl has got to pay her bills, and this video is being kindly sponsored by Fable, and they are sponsoring this video for a very special giveaway, and that is for the book What Will People Think by Sarah Hamden. This is the physical art copy that I received quite a while ago, but I am so freaking hyped for this book. It is by a Palestinian American author, and essentially we follow our main character Mia, who is a New Yorker, and she's starting a stand-up comedy career. Of course, this is to the chagrin of her straight-laced family, and she also finds herself getting tangled romantically in a situation with her boss. And as she gains popularity, there seems to be some sort of secret lurking in her family's history that could really jeopardize things for her and her family. I feel like if you're a child of immigrants, the whole phrase, what will people think or what will people say, is something that we hear all the freaking time. So I feel like this one's going to be super relatable, and I'm just so excited to read it. And if you want to win one of 100 giveaway copies from Fable, then all you have to do is click the link in my description and join the free giveaway club for What Will People Think. And then from there, you just have to head to the kickoff room in the giveaway club and leave a little comment there. It could be, introducing yourself or telling us why you're excited to read the book. And from the people who comment in the kickoff room and join the club, Fable will pick 100 giveaway winners to receive the e-copy of the book in their Fable app. Honestly, this is a great giveaway, and you get to read What Will People Think with me and the other people in the giveaway club. So I highly recommend heading to the link in my bio, and the winners will be selected on May 27th. Thank you so much to Fable for sponsoring this portion of the video, and now let's move on to the other books that I am super excited for. And honestly, it just really worked out that the sponsorship was for What Will People Think, because I wanted to tell you guys about it, and I think it's going to be amazing. So really excited for it and can't wait to dive in. So What Will People Think comes out May 20th, and I think that's the day that this video goes live. But I do want to talk about 3 books that came out last week on May 13th, and I have read one of these, and it was absolutely phenomenal, but I'm also very excited for the other 2. So one of the best books that I read of this year of 2025 was Immaculate Conception by Ling Huang. I've talked about this in one of my previous wrap-up videos, but many of you know that I've read the author's first book, which was called Natural Beauty, and that was a incredible horror novel. It was like a bit of a body horror situation. It tackled the beauty industry and our perception of beauty, and I read that a couple years ago and I absolutely loved it. And so when I found out that the author had another book called Immaculate Conception, I was like, I need this. I have to read it now. So when I got approved for an e-arc from the publisher, I was so freaking hyped. And guys, I read this earlier this year, and it was just so much more than I even expected, but it also just did so many things so well. And it is for sure one of my favorite books of this year, but probably like ever. It was even better than Natural Beauty in my opinion, and it was just so artfully done. This book, like Natural Beauty, had some themes of like the art world and sort of artistry, getting lost in another person. But essentially, Immaculate Conception is set in this sort of like near future alternate version of our real world. It's a bit of a dystopian situation, though it feels very, very familiar. And honestly, I could believe this being a version of our world. It begins with our main character, Enka, who is an art student, and she is from something called the Fringe. So essentially in this world, there are these things called buffers that are sort of put between poorer and wealthier neighborhoods. And so it kind of acts as a buffer. So people on either side only see an extension of their own community and not whatever is on the other side. And so it's this idea of trying to reduce crime and reduce envy of other people and their wealth, or just like reduce unseemly views. And so somehow Enka gets this like scholarship to go to this art school that is like on, the other side of the buffers or whatever. And there she meets Mathilde, who is also Asian American, or like half Asian, I think. And Mathilde has lost her family, and she's, I think, an orphan. And Enka finds herself so enraptured by Mathilde at the art school. And basically the rest of the book sort of follows her enamored with this person and following her art journey, but also being so envious and basing so many of her decisions upon Mathilde, and, wanting to compete with her, but also kind of being in love with her as a friend. Like, there is definitely something queer about this relationship, even if it's not always explicit. But that whole incredible relationship aside, and like just the character interactions and themes, all of that aside, this book also delves into the art world. It delves into AI. It delves into class divides, privilege, capitalism, and the way that it has shaped our world. And honestly, this was just like so realistic and so well written. It's also really beautiful prose, and there are so many art references and beautiful descriptions of the different art pieces that Mathilde makes or Enka makes or that appear throughout the book that you cannot help but feel just absolutely enraptured. Like, it was just so beautiful and incredible. And I don't want to spoil anything, but the book does have sort of a frame narrative, which is like set in the future, and then there is like the flashbacks to when they're in school and then later parts, and we are getting like pieces of their story together, and then also like their relationship and the world changing over many, many years. And I think it amounts to about a decade or two. And honestly, I was just so impressed with this book. Like, it was so well done, and it was the type of book that I wish I had written. Like, it was that good. And I also feel like Ling Ling Huang just sort of pulled so many ideas that I've been feeling and thinking in my head and put it into a word form for me, and it was just so nice to see that. So if you enjoy slight dystopias / literary fictions, if you enjoy very complicated relationships between characters and also very messy main characters who are kind of anti-heroes, kind of not the best people, and if you're looking for a book that tackles the concept of art in a AI world, then you need to pick up this book. Honestly, I don't think I'll ever read anything as impeccable as Immaculate Conception, but we're gonna try anyways. All right, the next book that's already out that I'm excited for is The Emperor of Gladness by Ocean Vuong. This also came out on May 13th, I believe, and I've had the arc for a bit, but I haven't had the chance to pick it up. Again, reading slump, but I'm very excited for this because essentially it follows this young man who is sort of suffering mentally, and he is attempting to commit suicide, and he finds himself stopped or sort of distracted by this elderly woman with dementia who sort of convinces him to try something else and to, you know, get off the ledge. And from there, it's sort of a story of the two of them, and I don't know too much else, but I really loved Ocean Vuong's writing in On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous, which was part memoir, part novel, I believe, and I also feel like he did a great job of sort of tackling the concept of mental health and mental illness. So I'm really curious to see how that, you know, unfolds in this book, and I just feel like this concept as well is just something I would love because, yeah, I'm a depression girly. I'm a bipolar girly. So like anything with depression rep, I'm like, yes, give it to me now. I do know that I will cry my ass off with this book, so I'm excited. If you've read this already, let me know what you thought of it because I'm curious to see how it measures up to his previous books. Okay, the next book is one that I'm really excited for, but it's the third book in a series, and I haven't read the second book, but they are companion novels, so that's okay. But that book is Can't Get Enough by Kennedy Ryan. I absolutely adore Kennedy Ryan's books, even though I've only read one, but I know I would love the other ones if I had the chance to pick them up. And the one I've read is Before I Let Go, which is a absolutely stunning, beautiful, healing romance that tackles so many different topics and follows a divorced couple who find themselves like coming back to each other after healing from very respective traumas and sort of traumas related to their own relationship, and also with some other stuff that I don't want to spoil, but you should definitely check the content warnings for it. But that book was like both funny and sexy and beautiful and healing. I just loved it so much, and it totally ripped me apart, and it like is to this day one of my favorite romances. Now, since that book came out, there is a second book that came out that is a companion to that one, and I think it follows a different character, but it's called This Could Be Us, so I still need to read that one. But the most recent book in the series, the third one, which is another, you know, companion, so it follows a different character, I'm not sure who, it's called Can't Get Enough, and I've been seeing some lovely reviewers talk about this one recently with it coming out, and I know I'm gonna pick it up at some point, so I just need to go grab it. But I have heard in this book the main character is childless by choice, which I found to be really interesting, and I really want to read a book with that kind of perspective and that kind of main character as well, because I feel like it's just not represented all that often. So I'm very, very excited for this book, and I think I might even pick it up before This Could Be Us because I'm just intrigued, but who knows, maybe I'll just binge both books back to back. Okay, next we have a set of 4 books that are coming out back to back to back to back. And they're all from a very special publisher, which, if you didn't know, is a community-powered publisher. I'm lifting something, that's why I'm, struggling. A community-powered publisher where book influencers or tastemakers have their own sort of Patreon-esque community. And the community sort of powers this publishing imprint that they get to run and have, where they get to publish books that they choose that they think their communities are going to love. And it's about 1 to 2 books that they publish per tastemaker per year. And many of you know, I have my own publishing imprint through Bindery or Bindery Books. And Bindery Books has many other tastemakers with their own imprints. And 4 of those imprints have books coming out this spring. So let's talk about them. The Bindery Books Spring Collection. Here is this cute little ARC box that the Bindery team sent me. I'm so excited for these books because they sound fabulous. And I'll talk about the book that's coming from my publishing imprint in just a sec, but let's talk about these first because I'm just so hyped. And I'm actually going to New York in June for the release of these books and for a very special launch event that Bindery will be hosting for these 4 books. So I'm very hyped. I went to New York last October for the fall first ever inaugural launch, and that was so much fun. And I loved seeing all the other tastemakers from Bindery and just hanging out. So yeah, that was amazing. So the first book that I have is The Unmapping by Denise S. Robbins. And this book is coming out from Mareas, which is the imprint that is run by My Name is Marines. If you've followed her on BookTube or on TikTok, I think she's bigger on TikTok, but she's actually a BookTube OG. She's been around for a while. So if you haven't been following her, go follow her because she has some really interesting discussions on her channel and on her TikTok. And it's just so eloquent, I think. So yeah, go support Marinas. The Unmapping by Denise S. Robbins. This is a bit of a sci-fi, I think, and it's set in New York City. And essentially, the city kind of wakes up when the buildings and places in the city suddenly start rearranging themselves and sort of unmapping themselves. They're changing and moving and no one knows why. And from there, we're following our 2 main characters, Esme Green and Arjun Varma. And they are part of the New York City's emergency management team that is meant to figure out this whole situation, which they're calling the unmapping. And both these characters are sort of dealing with their own specific things. Esme is looking for her missing fiance and is dealing with all this bureaucratic nonsense. And then Arjun is on the ground level trying to deal with disoriented New Yorkers and just hoping to be the hero that the city needs. I'm really excited for this book because it has themes of climate change, of political unrest, and social justice. That's what the back of the book says. And honestly, the fact that Marinas is the one who acquired this book has me really hyped because I think she and I have similar-ish tastes, and I just respect her taste. I think she has some really interesting opinions, and I feel like whatever book that she's chosen to publish under her imprint is going to be pretty phenomenal. So super hyped for this one, and I just feel like it's the perfect type of book that might help with my reading slump, so we'll see. Okay, next I have the book that's coming from Jason's imprint, which is called Easy Cat Press, and Jason is really huge on TikTok. If you don't follow him, go check him out. He's a lovely human, and he's publishing Of Monsters and Mainframes by Barbara Truelove, and this is a sci-fi romance cozy fantasy situation, and the main character in this book is, I believe, a spaceship, which is just so cool. What the hell? And there are actual paranormal monsters in this book, and then also sci-fi stuff going on. And I do remember there being mention of Dracula and them having to fight off Dracula. It features a motley crew of people and beings, and they're just trying to figure it all out. And there's AIs and there's spaceshipy stuff, and I'm not explaining this very well, but it does feel kind of like a cozy version of those pulp classic sci-fi movies and novels. And it does have a very strong theme of friendship as well, which I think is going to be just so adorable. So I'm very, very hyped for this. Okay, next I have the book that's being published by Zoran, and her publishing imprint is called Fantasy and Friends. Zoran is lovely and is a huge fantasy reader, and so this is a fantasy and is a bit of a female rage type fantasy, and that is Crueler Mercies by Maren Chase. And essentially this book follows a beloved princess of this kingdom, but 9 years after being princess, her mother is executed and she is forced into exile and forced into obscurity. And 11 years later, she's given the choice to either marry the enemy general, giving him the legitimacy to take the throne, or she can die as a forgotten princess. But she finds herself getting sort of wrapped up with this lady in waiting named Soline, who introduces her to the powerful but unstable magic of alchemy. I'm a huge Full Metal Alchemist fan, so any book with like the mention of alchemy, I'm like, yes, give it to me now. But this book also has, as you can probably tell, a sapphic romance to it. So I'm very excited for this, and I've only heard amazing things, and apparently it's got like a killer opening and ending. So I am very hyped for this. Okay, and then the last bindery book that's coming out this spring is Black Soul Queen by Samantha Banzel. And this book is coming from Violet Tier Books, which is the imprint by Kevin Norman. And this book is by a Filipino-American author and has Filipino representation. And it is a beautiful fantasy from what I've heard. The book is set in this pre-colonial island nation and follows these 3 different women who are all sort of vying for the throne and for some power. We have the actual queen of the kingdom, and then we have the heir to the kingdom. And then we also have the matriarch of a traitorous rival family who also has ties to the throne. The book is filled with passion, romance, betrayal, and divine magic, according to the back of the book. And this just seems like it's going to be absolutely wonderful. So I'm really, really excited for it. So those are the 4 bindery books that I'm really excited for. Let me know which of those you're most excited for and which one you think I should read first. But moving on to the other books that I'm excited for. Next, I have A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping by Sanggu Mandana. I've talked about this book before so many times because I think the pub date has moved multiple times, but this is the companion or new novel by the author Sanggu Mandana, who is the author of A Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, which was such a cute, cozy fantasy that I really, really enjoyed. So I'm super excited for this one because it involves an inn and a witch and a romance, and I feel like it's just going to deliver on a bunch of the cozy vibes that I got from that other book. So super hyped. Okay, and then the next book that I'm excited for is The Bewitching by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. I cannot ever have a upcoming releases video without mentioning a Sylvia Moreno Garcia book because she's so prolific, and I feel like she releases a book every year, and I'm always so hyped for it regardless of whether I liked every single one of her books. I've loved so many of her books, even if a couple weren't really my thing, so I'm still really excited for this. This book follows 3 different women in 3 different eras who encounter danger and witchcraft in this eerie, multi-generational horror saga. This book also involves some academia because the main character is a graduate student who is studying the history of horror literature and is researching the life of this obscure horror author named Beatrice Tremblay, who is the author of these macabre tales. And this concept feels very similar to some of Sylvia Moreno Garcia's other books, like this concept of delving into the history of, you know, someone. So I'm really interested to see how this one goes. I absolutely love paranormal and horror novels, especially ones that sort of toe the line between our real world and some sort of horrific world. And it seems like as the main character sort of researches these things, she starts to realize that these stories don't match up and that there's more to all the things that happened many years ago. Okay, the next book is one that I'm so freaking hyped for because it's by Danica Nava, who is the author of The Truth According to Ember. I talked about that book in a recent discussion video, which you can go check out down below. But Danica Nava is the first ever Indigenous author to be published with a rom-com novel. And this is her sophomore novel. It's her newest book that's coming out. It's not related to the first one, but it's a new book. And it's called Love is a War Song. And this sounds like it's going to be such a cute and fun, like romantic comedy. And I feel like it's just going to deliver on a lot of like the vibes and endearing nature of The Truth According to Ember. Essentially it follows our main character, Avery Fox, who is Indigenous and Native American, and she's a pop singer. And she finds herself becoming a bit of a national joke when she poses on the cover of Rolling Stones in a scantily clad outfit and in a feather war bonnet. And there's a lot of outrage to this whole situation, and she thought that she was sort of like nodding to her Native American heritage by doing this and sort of showing her success as a Native American singer, but instead it turns her into a social pariah and gets her dubbed as a fake. So with threats coming from every direction and her career coming to a standstill, she decides to escape to her estranged grandmother's ranch in Oklahoma. And there she has to work herself to the bone in the blazing heat, but she also meets a lovely man on the ranch. And that man is Lucas, who has lived on the ranch since he was very young. And although he feels that Avery is the antithesis to everything that he believes in, he finds himself forced to pick her up from the bus station and bring her to the ranch. And he's forced to sort of keep an eye on her and help her work in the ranch. And obviously finds himself falling for the one person he thought he never would. Honestly, I am so freaking excited for this book because this is kind of the like small town romance that you would usually get, but with Native American main characters, Indigenous main characters, and with all of that context to it. And it sounds like it's going to be so freaking fun and amazing. Like, I just love when BIPOC authors authors are given the space to revamp and re-envision old tired tropes and old tired storylines and make them into something so much more interesting and new. The small town romance thing, I am over it, but when an Indigenous author writes it, give it to me now. So yes, go support Love is a War Song by Danica Nava. Go pre-order it, go check it out, go request it from your library and your local indie, and let's make some buzz about this book because I'm so excited. Alrighty, we are on to the fall bindery books, the like 6 or 7 books that are coming out that I'm so freaking hyped for. And honestly, this is a really killer list, so you do not want to be missing out on any of these, so please go check them out and please go pre-order them and add them on Goodreads and do the whole thing. And I will love you forever if you do so for the book that I am publishing with my publishing imprint, Boundless Press, and that is Dust Settles North by Dina Al-Junaidi. I've talked about this book so many times before, and I feel like I cannot do it justice because it's such a beautifully written lyrical book that really got to the center of so many experiences that I've had as a child of refugees, as someone living between multiple cultures and growing up with religious guilt and feeling like I'm not enough and struggling to understand my parents and all of the things that they've been through. And then, also understanding that they are human too, and that, they can fail me too, and that they can make mistakes, trying to reconcile all of that. This book represented all of that so beautifully. It follows a pair of adult siblings, Hannah and Zayn, who are traveling to Egypt for their mother's funeral. She's recently passed, and the two of them are sort of reeling from her death and, struggling to move forward and figure out who they are beyond this moment in their lives. It's a major paradigm shift for both of them, but also kind of forces them both into this childlike position where they don't know where to go next. And so Hannah finds herself giving up her spot at Columbia Law and staying in Egypt to sort of reconnect with her roots maybe, but also understand her mother better and understand all the things that her mother did when she was younger and who she was when she was younger before she became a mother, because there's an element of sort of activism and protest and rebellion, I would say, that she would caution her children against when she was older in America. And so it's this idea of like Hannah reconciling, these two parts of her mother and trying to understand where she fits in that and what she can do. And then we have her brother Zayn, who returns to America and returns to his life and is finding himself sort of self-destruct in some very unhealthy ways and dealing with his grief in unhealthy ways that sparks this downward spiral that forces him to really have a come to Jesus moment and understand who he is and what he wants to do next, and actually make some moves towards that. But throughout it all, the main characters are also dealing with, religious guilt and, are they Muslim enough? Can they even call themselves that when their faith has lapsed in some ways, and how much of their identity is predicated on that? And then they're also dealing with, the secrets that their parents were keeping from them, including their father. And there's just so much beautiful detail to this book that I think, if you're someone who's a child of immigrants or child of refugees and you've had this experience of living between two worlds, like, you will really feel it. You will really understand this book and just feel so seen by it. I'm honestly so grateful to the author Dina for writing this book. She's also Egyptian American. She's a Brooklyn-based author. And I was just so impressed when I read this book as a submission to my imprint, and I just knew I needed to publish it. So I hope you guys will go check out Dust Settles North. It comes out September 30th, and I'm just so freaking hyped. And I'm just so excited to see this like representation out in the world, but also just like add another normalized version of BIPOC existence, of Arab existence, of Egyptian existence. So yes, I hope you guys will be excited for Dust Settles North. It comes out September 30th. And if you don't mind, I would absolutely adore it if you can add this to your Goodreads want to read shelf or pre-order it. I will love you forever. You will also be entered for some pre-order goodies, and you also just get to support my imprint. Like, the more successful I can make this book, the more books I can publish with Bindery under my imprint. So all of it kind of connects and is really important. And with that said, if you haven't already, you can join my Bindery community as a free follower to also support me if you can't support in a monetary way, and that also supports Dust Settles North. But if you join the higher paid tiers, specifically the star tier and above, you'll also receive a mailing of some themed goodies for Dust Settles North every 4 months until the release. So the first mailing is actually going to go out in the next month or so, and then one will go out closer to the book's release. And I spent the last week or two working on some designs for some of these goodies. So if you've been following me, you know that I recently launched my stationery shop, and I have stickers and bookmarks and things, but I created 3 exclusive designs for Dust Settles North, and these are going to be part of the mailing for the star tier and above. love of my bindery community. So if you want to receive these goodies, then join my bindery community at the star tier and you'll get these like limited edition, goodies. So first up, I have this really cute hourglass sticker, and it has a quote from the book that says, "The two of them existed in this in-between world, living between two cultures in a realm that most people they know wouldn't understand." I absolutely love that quote, and I think it just encompasses, what the book is about and what it feels like. And I'm just really proud of this hourglass that I drew myself and that, I designed with this quote. And then the next sticker that I made is one that you'll kind of understand when you read the book, but it's a little text conversation between Zane and his mom. He says, "What's a Netflix password?" And she answers, "Zane Hannah 1234." And then the final sticker design, and this will also be a bookmark. This is the bookmark. It says, "Do not disturb. I'm busy changing the landscape of the publishing industry," which is just, what you guys are doing as part of my community. And then this is the back. It's branded for my publishing imprint. So it says, "Boundless Press, diversify your bookshelf." So that's the bookmark. It's like a die cut, cardstock bookmark. So you can use it as a bookmark, or you can just like hang it on things if you want to like use as a do not disturb sign. But I also made a sticker version of it so that you guys can like stick it on things. So you'll receive both the bookmark and the sticker version. And if you didn't notice, the background of this also has like elements from the cover of the book. So it's like really tied in. And the idea is that this will be sort of a gotta catch 'em all situation. So for each book that we publish under my imprint, Boundless Press, there will be a themed sticker, an exclusive one that only goes to star tier members and above in these quarterly mailings before the book releases. So you have to support the book before it releases to like get the exclusive sticker. I think it'll be really cute because years down the line when we have like multiple books, you'll have like a whole collection of these, and I might change the design slightly to like suit each book, but it'll kind of be this situation of, you're helping support change the publishing industry and publish books that people really want to love and take away this sort of gatekeeping and publish underrepresented authors and voices that traditionally wouldn't get to see themselves on bookshelves. So thank you so much to my bindery members for supporting me and my channel and making all of this possible and making it possible to publish Dina's book. And I'm just so freaking grateful. And if you didn't know, we do have another book that we've already acquired that will be coming out in spring 2026, and that is Burn the Sea by Mona Tiwari. We are currently in the process of figuring out the cover for it, and I actually have a poll on my bindery community where you can vote on which cover you think is the best if you're part of the moon tier and above. So yeah, if you want to be part of the publishing process for that, then go join as a paid member and you'll get access to that. Okay, I've been yapping too long. Let's move on to the next books. I realized I forgot to mention one book that's coming out in June as well before Dust Settles North, and that is The 10 Incarnations of Rebellion by Vaishnavi Patel. This is Vaishnavi Patel's third book. She is the author of Kaige, which is a book that I've talked about so many times on my channel and that I personally really, really love. And Vaishnavi Patel is just a lovely author as well. And this book is one I'm so excited for because you guys may not know this, but I am friends with Vaishnavi Patel in real life and like we're kind of mutuals on socials and stuff. And so at one point a couple years ago, we were exchanging writing back and forth, and I did read early versions of 10 Incarnations of Rebellion, and I remember being so fascinated by it. And then, she revised the book and then sold the book, and now it's getting published. But essentially it is sort of an alternate history version of the British colonization of India, and our main character Kalgi is sort of part of this movement for rebellion. But there's also a magical element to this, and honestly it just sounds so cool. And I did start reading the arc and I'm already in love with it, and I just love where she's taken the book. I'm just such a fan of like alternate history books because I think there's just so much you can play with, and I think it's always such a great way to make commentary on both historical contexts but also our present day context. So definitely go support Vaishnavi Patel and 10 Incarnations of Rebellion, and I will actually be at the launch event for the book on June 6th at the Strand, and Vaishnavi Patel will be doing that event with Ava Reed. If you don't know Ava Reed, she's the author of A Study in Drowning and The Wolf and the Woodsman and a bunch of other books. So if you're interested in either author, definitely go come out to the Strand in New York City on June 6th and come say hi to me because I'll be there. You just have to grab a ticket at the Eventbrite down below, but otherwise it's gonna be a lot of fun. Okay, let's zip through these next few books, these next bindery books. So next I have Orange Wine by Esperanza Hope Snyder. This book is also coming out from Mareas, so the imprint from Marinas, who I talked about earlier with the unmapping. And this book sounds like it's going to be such a beautiful and lyrical sort of historical fiction, literary fiction. It's set set against the backdrop of early 20th century Colombia, where the Catholic Church is exercising its total control over women. And Orange Wine tells a story of sort of sisterhood and love and passion and also betrayal. Our main character Inez is the youngest daughter of an Italian nobleman and a Colombian poet, and she's sort of struggling with her different identities and sort of has to make a very difficult choice. And the book actually mirrors the alchemical process of creating orange wine and how Inez must sort of forge a new life from a bitter path. The book touches on artistic freedom and also feminine awakening. And overall, I'm just really excited for this one because it's also a literary fiction. So I'm glad that Death Settles North is in good company on the same pub day for September 30th. And again, I really trust Marina's, taste in books. So I think this one's going to be really good. Okay, the next book is Local Heavens by K.M. Fajardo. And this is being published under Catherine's imprint, which is Inky Phoenix Press. And this book honestly seems like everything I've ever wanted in a Great Gatsby retelling. Yes, you heard that right. It's a Great Gatsby retelling with Filipino representation because the author is Filipino-Canadian. And essentially it's set in New York City in 2075. And we are following Filipino-American Nick Carraway. But unlike the original, book, this book is, set in this far future. It's a sci-fi. It's got the billionaires and the wealth and whatever, but it's also got corporate hackers. It's got this sort of like cyberpunk-esque vibe to it. It feels very like Blade Runner, which is one of my favorite movies ever, like the original one. And I've always wanted a cyberpunk book that kind of touches on some of these themes. And the fact that it uses The Great Gatsby as like the source, like narrative, I think is going to be so much fun. And I've also heard that this is super queer, which is very exciting. And it seems that Nick is actually a corporate sanctioned cyberspace hacker, and he's been tasked and assigned to investigate Gatsby. So that's kind of where this is starting off, and he's sort of protecting the secret. And honestly, I'm just like so intrigued to see where this goes because it also has mention of like the wealthy having, these tech enhanced bodies that cheat death. And it's obviously going to have some commentary on class and status and like wealth. So I'm really excited for that because I think it's just going to be like so interesting, especially in this like cyberpunk-esque situation. And overall, I'm just so freaking hyped. Local Heavens, guys. And also this cover is so freaking gorgeous. The colors, the bisexual lighting, please. Okay, the next book that you need to have on your radar is Recipes for an Unexpected Afterlife. And this is by Destin J. Munden. And this is coming from Meg's imprint, which is called Cozy Quill. And Meg has one of the coziest pages ever. I think her biggest platform is on TikTok. And I just love the cozy nature of her videos. And the fact that her imprint publishes cozy fantasies, I think is just so fitting. So this book follows an undead orc knight who leaves battle behind for a new kind of afterlife, one with good food, good friends, and maybe even fatherhood. This book is giving me major Legends and Lattes vibes, and I feel like if you're into the cozy fantasy vibe, you're really, really gonna love this. And essentially, he's just like opening this restaurant for the city's undead and just figuring all of that out. And that just sounds like super freaking cute. So highly recommend checking this out. Okay, and then the last two books that I have are the last two bindery books, which are coming out on October 28th. And I'm so freaking hyped for these books. The first one comes from Emma's imprint, which is Skies Press, and that is To Bargain with Mortals by R.A. Basu. R.A. Basu is a South Asian Canadian author, which is really exciting. And essentially this book follows an outcast heiress, a notorious gang leader, and a country on the brink of revolution. So this is a fantasy, and it's set in a colonized nation called Virania. And essentially our main character, Poppy, lives between cultures. She is the brown-skinned adoptee of the viceroy, and she is both rejected by the white high society and also alienated from the people of her own culture. And unfortunately for her, when she discovers that her opportunistic fiance is planning to exile her, she finds herself fleeing straight into the clutches of someone called the Jackal. So our other main character, Hassan, is the ruthless criminal known as the Jackal, and he's been targeted for his family's divine magic, which the colonizers have tried to stamp out. And so when his brother is kidnapped as leverage, he decides to kidnap Poppy as his own. But of course, with her situation, Poppy might also have some aligned objectives with Hassan, so the two of them will become unlikely allies and maybe something more. Honestly, I'm so excited for this book because it's got the South Asian rep. I love that it has this colonized nation, concept, and also just this idea of this main character dealing with, the effects of colonization and when you are stripped of your culture and heritage and who you are natively. And And that is what colonization does. And I think that this is going to have some really interesting conversations, and I'm excited for the potential romance in this. I don't know how much of a romance there is, but very, very hyped for this book. Okay, and then the final book that I have is coming from Michael's imprint, and it's from his imprint Left Unread, and that book is Cry Voidbringer by Elaine Ho. I am so freaking hyped for this book because it's got really strong elements of resistance, and the fact that Michael is publishing this under his imprint has me so hyped because he has incredible taste, but also he does so much for the community and just getting people to act and speak up, and I think that that's so important, and I love what he's done with his community, and also just the fact that he is supporting this book. And this was actually one of the books that I was also considering, but when I found out Michael was interested in it, I was like, okay, I'll let you have this. So very excited for this. So essentially in this book, when the sort of God's power starts to wane, so whatever magic I think in this world starts to wane, the queen of the kingdom, who is fighting against these imperialist oppressors, decides that the only way to bolster her fight is to start wrenching children of other cultures from their homes and conscripting them into service. And so our main character, Hammer, is one of those children. Hammer has grown up to become a jaded soldier, waging Ashby's, perpetual war, and has only really been able to think of her survival. But when she accidentally rescues Viridian, who is a child with rare and potentially devastating powers, her priorities shift because the young girl seems to be the answer to the queen's prayers. She might just be the perfect weapon to restore the kingdom's ancient borders, even if the colonized cities don't really want this version of liberation. And so the question becomes, can Hammer protect this young girl Viridian from being used in this way and from the system that sort of broke Hammer herself? Or will she be unable to do anything before the young girl's power is unleashed on the world? This book has been described as a gripping saga of how far one will go for freedom and control, and how easily it can all be taken away. And I think there's so many strong themes to this book, both in terms of history and our current context, and I cannot wait for it to come out and cannot wait to read it because I think it's really gonna be a stunning sort of new voice in this space and something that you wouldn't really expect, and that's really gonna change up your perspective of fantasy and what you can do with it. And with that, those are all of the books that I wanted to talk about today that I want you to pick up, that I want you to be aware of, and that I want you to add to your Goodreads and add to your pre-order list and go support. You may have noticed that most of the books on this list were by BIPOC authors, and that is always intentional on my part. And if you're new here and you've been watching my last few discussion videos, I really hope that you will actually listen to some of these recommendations and intentionally look at what you're reading and intentionally support BIPOC authors and give them the support that they need, especially early on in the publishing process, in these times where you need to pre-order to show publishers that there's interest. I hope you can support them now and really help them forward, because these books are all amazing and all ones that I can't wait to see in the world and that are really going to change the publishing industry. I think Bindery is doing so many great things, and I'm so proud of all of my fellow tastemakers and all of the authors and books that they are publishing. So yeah, just absolutely grateful, thankful to be in this position, thankful to have my own publishing imprint and to be publishing Dust Settles North. Thank you to all of you who are part of my Bindery community and supporting me and who have been watching my videos and pre-ordering Dust Settles North and just doing all of the things. You guys are amazing. So thank you so much. And I will see all of you in my next video. And please let me know if you've read any of these books, if you're planning to read any of these books, and if you're excited for anyone in particular. I will see you in my next video, and please remember that this story ain't over. Bye.